allowed to ask. You're not allowed to ask. They just walk right into our country, and they kill people. You have murders. So you have 13,099 murders. Many of them have killed far more than one person. Bad things are going to happen. And you have terrorists at levels that we've never seen before. We had terrorists down the lowest we've ever. I had, in 2019, and this isn't done by me, this is done by Border Patrol, which, by the way, endorsed me. They gave me a great endorsement. They said, he's the greatest president ever. He's the greatest president. The head guy, boy, Paul, was great. He made a beautiful speech, but he said, he's the greatest president our country has ever had. I said, does that include Lincoln, Washington, and a couple of others? But it's very nice. But they gave me the strongest endorsement. And I have to say this, in the same little speech, they said she's the worst thing to ever happen to our country. And it's very hard for them to say that. She never made one phone call in 4 years to the Border Patrol. How are we doing? I used to drive them crazy. They probably said, oh, no, it's the president again. Yes, yes, we're fighting our president. Yes. I used to drive them nuts. When I had nothing to do, I said, call the Border Patrol. And we got, just drop that chart, please. That chart, my all-time favorite chart. My all-time favorite chart. I love that chart. I sleep with that chart. I kiss it every night before I go. Because I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the chart. If you take a look at the arrow on the bottom, that was the day I left office. That was the lowest illegal immigration we ever had. And I kept it pretty good. And then you take a look, and we had Mexico pay for their soldiers. They didn't want to pay for their soldiers. I said, you have to give us soldiers while we build the wall. And they paid so much money to us, and they said, we're not going to do that. They actually laughed at me when I suggested it, and I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a tariff of 100% on all your cars and everything that comes into the United States. They said, you know what they said? Sir, we would be greatly honored to let you have our soldiers free of charge. Thousands. How many would you need, sir? I said, as many as it takes. And they were great. They made a big contribution to our security, let me tell you. But they got to stop with, now we're talking Turkey. One of the first calls I'm going to make is to Mexico. You stop letting people come in through our border and come in through your southern border, and you stop it. Because Mexico, and I had a great relationship with the president, but he retired now. He left. He was a good man. He was a socialist. You can't have everything, but he was a good man. But they paid a fortune for the soldiers along the border. We were able to have great numbers. Well, built 571 miles of wall. I was going to add 200 more. By the way, far more than I said. I was talking about 200, 250. We built 571. And nobody talks about it. And you know what I did? Because we had a Congress that was not behaving. I said, I don't care. This is an invasion of our country. I'm taking it out of the military. And I took it out of the military because I gave them $725 billion. I say, congratulations, fellas, I'm taking out 10. What is it for, sir? It's called a wall because we're being invaded by Mexico. But now we have a new president in Mexico. Supposed a very nice woman. They say I haven't met her. And I'm going to inform her on day one or sooner that if they don't stop this onslaught of criminals and drugs coming into our country, I'm going to immediately impose a 25% tariff on everything they send in to the United States of America. And the reason I delayed that, you're the first ones I've told it to. Congratulations, North Carolina. And it's only got a 100% chance of working, because if that doesn't work, I'll make it 50. And if that doesn't work, I'll make it 75 for the tough guys, and I'll make it 100. Then I'll make it 100. And at some point, they'll have so many soldiers on their southern border. You know, their southern border is where they come in. They come right through. And by the way, it has a 100% chance of working. It's only a question. I'll start off at 25%. That's a lot. Do you know Mexico's our #1 trading partner? Do you know what that costs? They make a fortune. They've taken over our country in a way since this Biden-Harris people. They became our #1 trading partner, and they're ripping us off left and right. It's ridiculous. They're not going to rip us off. They wanted $3 billion to meet with Biden. They wouldn't have said that with me. I would have said, oh, really? You want $3 billion to meet? I'd do the opposite. If you don't give us $3 billion, I'll impose the biggest frickin' tax. You know, I've never told you any of this, and I wanted to wait till the day because I don't want to have her. She's a low IQ individual. I don't want to have her say, you know, I had an idea last night while I was sleeping, turning, tossing, sweating. Because I sleep, I turn and I toss and I sweat and I sleep like no, I don't even sleep. You know, I've gone through 62 days without a day off, every single day. Every single day. And you know what? She takes a day off every other day. Last week, she makes a terrible little, she has these press conferences that last for about 2 minutes, and then she takes the day off. You know, when you're running for the president of the United States and you want to do it because you have to fix the country, that's the way I'm doing. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. I could be at the most gorgeous beaches in the world right now. But I'd much rather be with you people because you people I like you people better. I'd much rather be with you. No, I would. No, and we're doing something historic. You know what we're doing? This has never been done before. They'll never have rallies like this. You know, we went to Milwaukee the other night, and we're doing great in Wisconsin, by the way. We could have filled that arena. What do they have? 28,000 seats, including the floor, fully packed. We could have filled that arena 3 times, maybe 4 times. The people outside, thousands and thousands of people. There's never going to be that. In 4 years, you're going to have a candidate, Republican, Democrat candidate, and they're going to come to North Carolina, right? And they're going to say, how many are there? And the consultants back there that make a fortune because they think they bring these people. You know, they don't bring, nobody brings anything. We bring them. We together bring them. But you know what they're going to say? And the same people that be represented, very smart people, very good people. You have to, can't give them too much leash. We can't give them too much. But they're going to have 250 people come. And that's standard. See the ladies of North Carolina? They've come. Those beautiful, beautiful ladies. They're looking better and better all the time. These beautiful ladies, and I think they're very well to do. I mean, they're always so beautiful, beautifully coiffed. Look at that. They're just, but here's what I love. They're great Americans. They love our country. They love North Carolina. They come from isn't it nice where you can sort of be closer? They'll travel to California. If I went to Hawaii, they'd be in Hawaii. I think they're loaded. You want to know the truth? I think their husbands. The reason I never see their husbands is because they're working like hell. Because these wives are traveling all over the place. 257, they've been at 257 rallies. And their husbands are going to be so happy when this ends. But I don't want, and you know exactly what I'm saying, I didn't want to say this about what I'm going to do at the border. I stopped at the biggest auto plant in the world from being built on the border. China, and I have a lot of respect for China. Look, they're smart as hell. They get angry when I say the fake news. So, they're smart as hell. They're like playing chess and grandmasters against playing an average checker player and maybe a less than average checker player. the deals, when I came into office, I've never seen such bad deals with Japan, with China, the worst trade deals. I actually said, there's only two reasons we could have deals so bad. The people making the deals were corrupt, which I actually believe, or they were very stupid. And I think you had a combination of both. And we fixed a lot of those deals. We would have had them all fixed up, but then we had to fix COVID. But we had the greatest, think of it, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. The greatest. We had the greatest border. That's done by Border Patrol. That's not a Trump special. That's done by Border Patrol. That lovely, gorgeous, I look at it, I get tears in my eyes. And you know, the day of that horrible situation in Butler, it was just about there. It's weird that you have it almost, because it's usually all over the place. You have no idea where it's coming up. When I say lift up the sign, I usually have to look all over there. I have one over there. But that graph is so meaningful because of, but even if the numbers were bad, I would still kiss it just equally. But those are the best numbers in the history of the border. And then look, it was like an Elon Musk rocket ship went up. They announced they were going to open the borders. I thought they were kidding. I built 200 miles of rail. And this is what Border Patrol wanted. I wanted to have concrete plank, like in a parking lot, straight up and down the air, but you wouldn't get vision. And concrete is not as strong in terms of steel. They have very strong specifications. They wanted to have steel, hardened steel, very hard to cut. Then they wanted to have very powerful, high-number concrete. It's a very hard concrete. And then they wanted to have rebar at the highest level of steel strength in the middle, because it's very hard to cut. It's like, it can be done if you're really good, but it's very hard. And then they wanted to have a anti-climb panel on top. I hate it. I hate the anti-climb. I said, I don't like it. It's so beautiful without that damn panel. I said, don't make me do that, sir. It's an anti-climb panel, and it's called that for a reason. And we actually had testers. We had two guys that climbed Mount Everest. I said they should qualify. But you know who the best were? We had drug runners. These guys are unbelievable. They went up that thing like it was nothing. Like I never, with 75 pounds of drugs on their back, drug runners. They were beating the Mount Everest. Well, it's a different profession after all. But they were right. That anti-climb panel stops them cold. They couldn't get over the anti-climb, so I said, let's do it. Let's do it. But we built 200 miles of additional, and all they had to do was put it up. The hard work was done. They were built, it was delivered, and the hard work was done. Highest specification, cost more money than what I would have done, but what I would have done, they have acids that actually melt concrete. They have certain acids that you put down. Those planks would have come down very easy. These guys are ingenious. You know, if they would spend their brains on good, everything in the world would be nice. No, they're genius. The way they smuggle drugs into our country. You got to see the cars. They build cavities in engines. So you're inspecting a car. They have them in hubcaps that even if you take the hubcap, you can't find them. It's like a double hubcap. It's the craziest thing. If they would spend that genius on doing good for their country or for us, I mean, we would have no problem. I mean, it's really incredible. And, you know, the people that do the trafficking, what they do with the women is they put them in trunks of cars. It's mostly women, by the way. Mostly women. A lot of people say traveling and trafficking. But the trafficking is women. And the reason is it's become as big as the drugs. And the reason is because of the Internet. The Internet made it a modern business and a big business. And I'll tell you, some of these guys are among the richest people in the world. And they run a real operation. And they essentially take care of Kamala because they even have an app where they can call. So they learn where they can drop people that they're putting into the country, where they can come through with drugs. They have an app. Can you believe you call an app? You're now a drug trafficker or a human trafficker, and you say, ding, 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 hello? Where do I drop these people? Go about 7 miles up and then go a mile left and just drop them at the opening in the gate. Okay, can you believe this? This is Kamala. So all that stuff ends very quickly. We'll get that thing built. But they could have put up 200 miles. Oh, you know what they did with that expensive stuff? And that's expensive. They had it laying in the sand, laying in the mud. It was all there to be put up. All they had to do is flip it up. It goes like, they put it up real fast. 3 weeks. The whole thing, we would have had 750 miles of wall. Think of it. And boy, walls work. Walls work and wheels work. You know, they never get obsolete, right? The computers, in about 2 minutes, they're obsolete. And, but we have the best computer guy there is, right? We have Elon. And he loves it. And you know where Elon is right now? Elon is right now. He's in Pennsylvania campaigning because he thinks it's the single most important thing he's ever worked on. Elon Musk, and we want to thank him. He's an amazing guy. When I saw that rocket came down, when I saw that sucker come down, 22 stories, by the way. You know, people think it's like 5 feet high. It's 22 stories. That sucker's coming down, and it's those engines were blowing. He says it's all computers, you know. It's true. That thing, I said, oh, man, it's going to crash. No, dude, it's going right into the gantry, right? It's going to crash. And then the engines, the fire starts blowing, the bottom left, the whole bottom left is blowing, and it just pushed it up. And then it came down, and those two big arms, you saw the arms? They grabbed that thing like you grab your beautiful baby. See, I've gotten much better. Years ago, I would have said something else, but I've learned. You have to learn. I would have been a little bit more risque. Like you grab your child, and put it in place, and I called Elon, I said, was that you? Yes. And he said, that's genius. He said, yeah, it was a lot of brain power went into that. I said, why do you do that? He said, well, we don't want to drop a ship in the ocean every time it goes, and you have to start all over. Those things cost billions of dollars. He said, this way we save them. I said, can Russia do that? No. Will they be able to? No, not for a long time. What about China? No. You know, we opened up Space Command. We did the whole thing. If we didn't do that, we'd be way, way behind. Space Force. You know, Space Force. They got one of the many things. We did so many things with the tax cuts, the regulation cuts, the right to try for those people that are terminally ill. You get the right to try our medicines here instead of going to Asia and Europe. Or if you have no money going home, which is about 99% have no money and they go home. But the few people that have the kind of money you need for that, they'd go to Europe, they'd go to Asia. And we have the best labs in the world. And nobody ever talks about it. They tried to get it for 50 years. I got it done, passed through Congress. You think anything's easy to get passed through those guys? It's not easy. But we did so many things, and we've saved thousands and thousands of lives. It's worked out unbelievably. And, you know, nobody wanted it. The scientists didn't want it because they're terminally ill. They don't want to start from a terminally ill person. Looks bad on the records. They didn't want record sheets. The insurance companies hated it. It was very, very, I got everybody into a room. Our country hated it because our country will get sued. When somebody's terminally ill, they die and they sue the country. I said, you can't do that. I got everybody in the room, and I signed an agreement. Everybody agreed that we're going to work beautifully with people that are terminally ill, but they're not going to be allowed to sue anybody. If they die, they die, and if they live, it's going to be the greatest story. We have saved thousands of people, and nobody ever talks about it. You know, nobody ever talks about thousands and thousands. I mean, we have a person in this room who was saved by right to try. We're, you know, a space-age drug. I have this thing, doing things, but it takes a long time to get them approved, or I cut it in half. I cut that time in half. But the FDA takes 12 years sometimes to get something. And by the time it's approved, a lot of people are gone. So when they're terminally ill, we get them that drug right away. They sign an agreement that I or my family will not ever, for any reason and under any circumstance, sue the United States government, such and such a drug maker, such and such a lab, Dr. Schwartz, Dr. Jones. We will not sue anybody. We just want to get better. That's all it says. Pretty good, right? That's pretty good for only a semi-non-lawyer. But that's essentially what it says. And, you know, the funny thing is the ones that were most against it were the drug companies and the labs. We have the greatest labs in the world. What we're doing, space-age things, and we got it started. It was dying on the limb before I came along. Well, NASA was dead. When I came along, all you're seeing with the space, and NASA was dead. NASA had grass growing out of its runways. The runway, I mean, they had, every time there was a crack, you had grass. This place was dead. Now it's the most vibrant center anywhere in the world. All of their centers, it's vibrant. And Elon brought it back, and the people at NASA are doing a great job. They're all working together. They're all working together. But we brought it back. And ultimately, we want to go to Mars and all, but what I wanted for is defense. And Russia and China were killing us in space, and space is so important. It's going to end up being maybe, I don't want to say more important than the Marines, because they'll never speak to me again, but I'll tell you what, it is going to be right up there in terms of importance. It's important. If we didn't have it, we were being lapped by China. They have stuff up there, and Russia, even though they're a little bit busy killing a lot of people, a war that would have never taken place. Zero chance. I'd speak to Vladimir Putin a lot. It was the apple of his eye. Don't do it. Don't do it. I mean, I closed up his pipeline. It was dead. Nord Stream 2. Biden came in and he allowed it to go. But he closed up the Keystone XL pipeline. Think of that. I said, no, Joe, you got it wrong. You let Keystone go forward and you close up the Russian pipeline. But he did the opposite. And then they said, oh, Trump loves Russia. Trump loves Russia. It's the biggest project they've ever had. I closed it up. Then he came in. The first day he was there, he let him build it. So what is that? Oh, that sounds so cute. I love dogs. I love dogs. We love dogs. You know, Lara Trump, by the way, you happen to know she's married to my son, and she's the vice chairman along with Michael. They're doing an incredible job. But she would come into the office, and she loves dogs and pets, and she would get me to do things for doggies that you wouldn't believe. Dad, we have to make the cages larger. We have to provide air conditioning. Can you believe it? I didn't know too much about it, but you understand what I'm saying? In these kennels where they're obviously not treated too good. I said, so do we have to give them a steam bath? Or do I? No, she was very, very strong, and I listened to her when she talks, I listen. But Laura was so incredible. As you know, she was born in North Carolina, lived here his whole life. And even
we are watching former President Trump campaigning in Raleigh, North Carolina. He says he is way leading in every swing state, despite polls showing the race is a neck and neck. He called Democrats a horrendously dangerous party that's going to destroy our country. He promised to end inflation and what he calls the invasion of criminals into the country. And he threatened to impose a 25% tariff on Mexico if they don't do more to stop migrants from coming to the U.S. Let's bring in our Deputy Political Director, Avery Harper, who's here with me in studio. Avery, what do you make of Trump's strategy here, the topics he chose to focus on in this closing message on the eve of Election Day?
Right. I think he is really focusing on issues to rally his base. When he talks about immigration, that is something that is deeply important to Republican voters. And what I'm not hearing is an appeal to those who might not already be in his tent, in contrast with the closing arguments that we've seen of Kamala Harris. And that is going to be really important in terms of who he's able to bring into his tent. These independent voters, 9 out of the last 12 presidential election, we've seen independent voters go with whoever is the eventual winner. According to our latest ABC News Ipsos poll, we see that Harris is actually leading with independents 49 to 44%. So I'm not sure if we're going to hear by the end of all of this a really clear appeal to those who may not agree with him.
And I want to bring in Jay O'Brien, who's in Palm Beach, Florida, for us. Jay, how significant is this new proposal that we just heard from Trump to impose a 25% tariff on Mexican goods?
Well, it's in line with what we've heard the former president say when it comes to tariffs on the campaign trail. The Harris campaign has billed that as a quote-unquote Trump sales tax, saying that those tariffs would trickle down to the average consumer and make goods purchased from eventually overseas higher for the average consumer. So the Harris campaign has tried to use that policy position to their advantage. But it's the Trump campaign, as Avery notes, leaning into what they view are their two most effective messaging tactics. Talking about the economy, which poll after poll show that voters trust Trump on more than Kamala Harris, and also immigration, which the Trump campaign views as a key issue for them as well. And in this issue, kind of merging a tariff on Mexico with Mexican, regulation of immigration, the Trump campaign is trying to merge both of those messaging items. But to Avery's point, it doesn't necessarily reach out to independents in the way that the Harris campaign is trying to. What it may do is try to reach out to some of those late-breaking voters who might be predisposed to vote for Donald Trump, but are so-called low-propensity voters and may be uncertain as to whether or not they're going to go to the polls. We know the Trump campaign strategy is also to try to move those voters, get those who might not cast a ballot but might be ideologically in that Donald Trump core out to the polls and try to get their numbers high in that capacity.
And I want to bring in White House correspondent Karen Travers. Karen, how is Vice President Harris focusing her message today? Because unlike Trump, who's hitting up 3 states, she's really laser focused on Pennsylvania.
It's all about Pennsylvania today for the vice president. She has 5 stops in that critical battleground state today, Diane, underlining how important her campaign believes that state is to get her across the finish line and into the White House. She is targeting voters there in that state, Latino voters, specifically Puerto Ricans, at 2 different events today, retail stops in 2 parts of central Pennsylvania. Her campaign feels that there is an opening there to win over those voters, maybe pull some away from the Trump side after those comments by the comedian at the Madison Square Garden rally that Trump held last week. So she is really doing a big focus on those voters today. It's a sizable population in Pennsylvania, specifically in Philadelphia itself for Puerto Rican voters. But Diane, she's finishing off with a closing argument that we have heard from her over the last several days. Notably last night in Michigan, she wasn't talking about Donald Trump specifically. She didn't even use his name. Her campaign says she's trying to end this on an optimistic note, talking more about what she would do, what she would bring to the White House, and trying to convince voters of that as they head to the polls.
And Republican strategist David Poliansky joins us now. David, are you satisfied with Trump's closing message? Is there anything that you've wanted to hear from him that you're not hearing him say?
Well, look, at the end of the day, I think it's imperative for both of these candidates to take the gloves off a little, but instead of driving punches at one another, I think it's important to remind people why they should be out voting for them. And so for former President Trump, frankly, just like the vice president, I think today it's urgent for both of them to drive a message of why their own supporters should get out and support them, and why those that might still be undecided want to, get out there tomorrow and vote for them, not just because of who they are, but what their vision is for the country going forward. And so I think that's really imperative, not just for Donald Trump, but for the vice president as well to drive today.
And so, Julie, let's talk about the vice president message. Democratic strategist Julie Rudzinski. I want to bring you in here, Julie, because we know that Vice President Harris, obviously, she's got 5 different events in Pennsylvania today. So while she's only in 1 state, she's going to be a very busy woman.